This week in my science classes, we use stop motion for the first time. So I'm gonna give you a crash course and a tutorial on how you can do stop motion with your students in your very own classroom. So I'm going to show you the website that I used for stop motion, and I found this idea from my next door neighbor at school, Miss Chapelier, who's an incredible STEM teacher. And I want to talk about how she does it in her classroom and also how I did it, because I was doing this as a procrastinator at the last second because I decided we're leading up to spring break. I really wanted something that was going to engage students in a group project, so I had my students working in pairs. The way that she does it next door is she has some cardboard boxes, like shoe boxes, cardboard boxes that they've recycled. So that would be a great thing to collect if you're planning on this and you wanted to have the area where they can film. So this creates like your background and your scene. We attached construction paper to that, whatever decorations they wanted to create the background for their stop motion. Now, I didn't have any cardboard and I am typically a wingette type teacher. So I did have poster board. So the way that we created our scenes is I had my students in a pair take their poster board and fold it hot dog style. And so we did this. Now the good news is, now that we've done this once, we actually saved our poster board. At the end, I'll show you how it looked. We stacked them all up and put them in the closet for next year. So I have folded it lengthwise, hot dog style, and now I'm folding over a side. So it's creating kind of like a shoebox, sort of. And then I'm folding the other side the same amount. All right, so you wanna make sure these creases are pretty good. And then I need scissors. Hold that thought. Voila, scissors. Okay, so they open up the poster board and they're going to cut these two side pieces right here so that then we can create the side of our little scene. I'll show you what it looks like. So we did this first, and now I'm not really going to have to do this with other classes, but I just wanted to give you some ideas. I went ahead and I folded these creases over the opposite direction to make them a little easier to stand up. You could definitely send out an email to parents asking for shoe boxes to your school, recycled Amazon boxes, some great ways to repurpose things that we might be throwing out. But if you're like me and you don't plan ahead, then this will work also. So you can see right here, I'm just taping the sides up to this box. And now what I've ended up with is this little scene. So students are able to create their stop motion scenes within this, and it blocks out the background and creates a little filming set. So at the end of ours, we taped everything to it. We were able to untape our paper and we stacked these. So now I have a stack of stop motion scenes. So that's step number one. Get your filming scene. You don't have to, but it just does make it easier for the students to kind of control what's in the scene. So that's step one. My students were working in pairs and they created their backgrounds and all the objects within their scene. I did have fishing wire to help them hide any objects they were wanting to put in the scene without their hands showing. And you can see they were working on the solar system and they did an incredible job. And this step did take the longest amount of time because they were creating, but I'm gonna share some alternative ways that Ms. Chapelier does this that might save you some time. Because this is the first time I did this project, I did learn that creating our own scenes did take a lot of time. This project from beginning to end took 1 week. I had intended it to take 2 to 3 days. So they created a 1-minute video in retrospect, if you wanted to make this shorter, you could provide props, or you could also say, we're going to cover 2 planets, or 1 example of mutualism, or 2 parts of the electromagnetic spectrum, and then maybe pairs could put their clips together and create 1 entire video. So just some ideas as I reflect on this. 1 week was fine for our class, and I think they got a lot out of it, but you may not have that much time, obviously, to do this in your class. All right, so next door, Miss Chapelier has bins of Legos and figurines and all sorts of things that parents have donated, and those are the objects that students use to create their stop motion. So she has lots of things already ready and made. In my classroom, we were doing projects in 6th grade, the solar system, 7th grade, symbiotic relationships, in 8th grade, the electromagnetic spectrum. So my students were using construction paper to create their scenes and whatever they wanted in it. The biggest thing for stop motion was getting students to understand that we wanted to illustrate, and that was what our stop motion was conveying, and that our information as far as explaining what was going on was going to be the voiceover and narration. You can do voiceover, sound effects, all of that in the website that I used, which is Cloud Stop Motion. There is a free version. We both opted, Ms. Chapelier and I, for the 50 gigabytes of storage. And for all 3 of my classes, so 120 students, we had enough storage and we were all working on it at the same time. So that has worked for us. But you could try the free version and see how that goes as well. If you have a stop motion app or website that you love, I would love to know down in the comments below, because there might be better ones out there. So this is just the one that I stumbled upon and it worked. It is a tad bit glitchy, but I'm going to show you now how to use it with your students, and let's take a look. The first thing we want to do is go to cloudstopmotion.com. And when I created my students' accounts, I used their full email address and their password was their lunch number. I put the link in Google Classroom and they were able to log in, and they saw a screen like this. So they're going to click on New Project. We're going to allow for the camera to be accessed. And for them to start capturing the frame, they're going to click the camera button. And here I am. Now, whenever they're filming, obviously they're going to have to take their Chromebook and they're going to have to turn it towards their scene to begin filming, and they're going to continue capturing frames like this with little small motions and differences in between. In the app, you can see, let's say that we didn't want this frame, because obviously we don't. We can come right up here to the top left, and there's the selected frame. We've clicked on it. You can see we can copy it, we can duplicate it, we can hold it, we can cut it, we can delete it. So we can do that again. So a lot of students might have had their hand in the frame, they deleted it right there. I did want to point out something that confused my students. When you see that my face is blurry in this video, it's because the stop motion is showing you where your last scene ended and where you currently are. So you can know if you are lined up, if your scene is moved, if your camera moved, and that helps you know, okay, we're just moving this clownfish or whatever is in the scene just a little, and everything else is lined up. So that is where you're seeing the blur come in, and it's just a tool to help you in recording your stop motion. Here is where we can do our audio. So when my students were finished with their stop motion, and I want to show you over here in the right side, students can play their stop motion right there, see how they like it. They can go back and they can make adjustments. And when my students were done with their stop motion, then we added in our audio. So they can either import, if they've recorded elsewhere, they can record the sound right here. So we're going to allow the microphone. We're going to begin recording, and then what they're going to do is save. They'll see it right here, and they can drag it down to their stop motion. And then they can adjust it as they want. This is a lot like iMovie. Whoops, I went out of it. This is a lot like iMovie if you've used any other editing apps. And then at the very end of it, there's text, so they can do titles. So let's say they wanted to do speech bubbles, which is fun if you're doing like, talking. Here's an introduction, so they can introduce my stop motion. And now we can see what that looks like. Recording, and then what they're going to do. All right, so obviously this is not the stop motion. They're going to be recording small differences within their scenes, and I'm going to show you an example I created to illustrate that in just a second. But before I do all of that, I just wanted to show you the features. Up here in the top right, we can export our film. So we can start our export, and at the end of it, it gives you the option to either save to your device or to save to Google Drive. We noticed that it was not working when we saved to Google Drive because it wasn't part of our organization. So my suggestion is save to your device, like their Chromebook, then have them go into Google Drive, upload it to Google Drive, and then they can add or create in Google Classroom, and that's where they can attach that video so that you can see it and grade it as a teacher. So they would click Start Export right there. All right, now the other thing I was going to say, so obviously this is a free account, I haven't logged in, is that it was a little bit glitchy, so I would have my students export their videos at the end of every class, even if they weren't done. So we knew that we didn't lose progress. And then whenever my students were totally finished with their projects, they were in Google Classroom, we deleted them out, and then we emptied the recycle bin on my teacher account so that we had enough storage to continue on, or for the next time we did stop motion. So that's Cloud Stop Motion. And hopefully you can use this with your students. You could even try the free version and see if that works for you before upgrading and paying for the additional storage. Hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. My students had an absolute blast with stop motion. I saw so many students bring out their artistic side, get creative. They were collaborating and also conveying their understanding of what we had been learning in class. So try this with your students and let me know how it goes. If you have any questions, you can ask down below. Also, if you've done stop motion before and you have suggestions, websites, apps that work better or that you love, I would love to hear those suggestions down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, happy teaching, and I'll see you in the classroom.